Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today we will to present the article about Muhammad night journey to Masjid Al-Aqsa, aspects of the earliest origins of the Islamic sanctity of Jerusalem. We are from group KQADQ, consists 5 members which are Muhammad AIMAN bin HUSSAIN, Ahmad Al-GHAZALI bin Rahim, Muhammad Anas bin RODIN, Muhammad MIQDAD bin SAIFUL BAHARI, and me, RAMADHAN bin RAMLEE. Without wasting time, let's find out the detail about this article. In light of the fact that Isra or Mi'raj, the night journey and ascension, is the second greatest miracle after the revelation of the Quran, it is crucial that we don't let this night pass without considering its meaning and lessons. Al-Isra wal Mi'raj took place while the Prophet Muhammad SAW was going through a period of extreme adversity and suffering. Additionally, the Prophet SAW had just ended the year of suffering in which he lost his Greek wife Khadijah, as well as his uncle Abu Talib, who had served as both his defender and ally. Having gone through so much grief and suffering, the Prophet Muhammad SAW was given a truly beautiful and comforting gift. He was transported not only to the sacred sanctuary and through the skies, but ultimately into the divine presence, the source of all comfort and hope. The main purpose of our choosing this article because Orientalists who have a biased and skeptical view of Islam have denied the miracles of the Prophet Muhammad SAW. They criticize that authentic miracles of the Prophet that come from hadith from companions. However, they do not present scientific and definitive reasons to deny the prophethood and revelation of the Quran. Second reason why we chose this article because we are interested to study what Rubin said in the article, which is Rubin attempts to show that contrary to popular belief among contemporary experts that the Masjid Al-Aqsa referenced in the Quran refer to the actual city of Jerusalem on earth.
My name is Muhammad AIMAN bin HUSSAIN, metric number 1211461. Okay, we move on to the next part, which is biography of author. Rubin was born in 1944 in Israel's Kiryat Ono and died on October 26, 2021. He went to Tel Aviv University in 1968 and continued his studies to get his bachelor's and master's degrees in biblical studies and Middle Eastern history. Then, he pursued his PhD in Arabic studies at the same university in 1971. He was a professor from Israel who worked in the Tel Aviv University departments of Arabic and Islamic studies in 1976. He has mostly written about the Quran, Quranic exegesis, and early Islamic tradition, Sirah and Hadith. Abraham, Moses, and the children of Israel are the main subjects of his present study, which investigates the biblical and para-biblical material of the Quran and its interpretation. In addition, he authored other books and contributed to the Encyclopedia of Islam and other publications. Rubin also was a member of the Advisory Council for the Encyclopedia of the Quran.
For the third point, we discuss about author argument. In this article, Rubin presents an alternative perspective on Quranic mention of Masjid Al-Aqsa in Surah Isra, first ayah. Rubin argues that Masjid Al-Aqsa does not represent a heavenly sanctuary, but rather refers to the earthly city of Jerusalem. The city is a Christian holy city, often called the New Jerusalem, which replaced the previous destroyed city due to Jewish sins. Rubin suggests that Prophet Muhammad's night journey to Jerusalem should be understood as a visionary experience similar to the one documented by Prophet Ezekiel. Early Islamic exegesis sources associate Masjid Al-Aqsa with Jerusalem, specifically the Baitul Maqdis. However, certain Shi'i sources deviate from this consensus by asserting that Masjid Al-Aqsa is situated in heaven, implying that the Prophet Muhammad never visited Jerusalem. Rubin suggests that this deviation emerged from tradition describing a night journey of Prophet Muhammad directly from Mecca to heaven, which were initially spread from the accounts of his journey to Jerusalem. Next, we go to the content of article. Yuri Rubin's article on Muhammad's night journey to Masjid Al-Aqsa is divided into 5 chapters, providing valuable insight into historical, religious, and the theological aspects to the event. The first chapter, Modern Scholarship, examines contemporary perspective and analysis of the night journey. The second chapter explores the Quranic verse and its key elements, while the third explores the historical context of pre-Islamic Jerusalem and the significance of Islamic Holy Land. The fourth chapter, Masjid Al-Aqsa in Tafsir, examines interpretation of night journey in classical Islamic exegesis. The final chapter explores the concept of Masjid Al-Aqsa in heaven, focusing on Shi'i exegesis and the Prophet's ascension from Mecca to heaven.
Next, we are going to the criticism of the books Muhammad Night Journey to Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa by Yuri Rubin. Some scholars have raised concern over certain claims and interpretation made in the book. For example, some critics argue that Rubin's portrayal of the Isra and Mi'raj tales as a simply mystical experience undermines the historical context and political significance of the story. Others have questioned Rubin's method for understanding the textual and visual sources employed in the book, as well as his reliance on certain Orientalist assumptions. Several scholars have also critiqued Rubin's views that the Masjid Al-Aqsa reference in the Quran refers to the mosque in Medina rather than the one in Jerusalem. They argue that there is ample evidence to support the traditional interpretation that the Masjid Al-Aqsa refers to the Jerusalem Mosque. So, we move to the book's strength. First, original interpretation. The books provide a unique interpretation of the Isra and Mi'raj narrative, which is different from the traditional interpretation. Second, integration of the different sources. The author use a variety of textual and visual sources to analyze the topic. Third, well-researched. The book is well-researched and the author has taken into various interpretations and opinions on the topics. And the book's weaknesses. First, alternative interpretation. The book presents alternative interpretation of the Isra and Mi'raj narrative that differ from mainstream Islamic interpretation. Second, complexity. The books may be challenging for readers who are not familiar with the historical and cultural context of the Isra and Mi'raj narrative. And the last one, limited focus. The book's primary focus is on the Isra Mi'raj narrative and its political implication. As such, certain aspects of the event and its historical context may be overlooked or not given sufficient attention.
Finally, the conclusion. It may be concluded that the interpretation connecting the Quranic Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa with Jerusalem accords to the evidence of the Quranic language itself and is thus confirms the pre-Umayyad. Apocalyptic literature from the post-biblical age and the Old Testament has already foreshadowed about the Quranic night journey to Masjid Al-Aqsa. The fact that the night journey is mentioned so soon after the destruction of the Israeli temple would seem to suggest that Masjid Al-Aqsa refers to a sacred location that survived the temple punitive destruction, much like the late antiquity Christian notion that identified the earthly Jerusalem with the new Jerusalem. The idea of an understanding that Muhammad ﷺ was carried to Jerusalem has persisted, and this is consistent with the agreement found in the oldest tafsir text that discuss how to interpret the Masjid Al-Aqsa in the Quran. As a result, because Shirk has been willing to accept it, the exegetical consensus of the first Quranic exegetes about a particular Quranic chapter occasionally merits more credibility than the Orientalists. So as a Muslim, it is our duty to read the Quran and the Hadith in order to grasp the amazing reality of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's journey, both to dispel any doubts that may arise in the light of the assertion made by Orientalists, and to demonstrate to others that Isra Mi'raj is in fact a miraculous reality. That's all from us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.